Well, I love middle grade. I absolutely love the stories. I own a huge collection of books. I have written some middle grade stories before, but haven't stepped forward to publish them.
Okay.
So I wanted to expand on characters and flesh out a few more characters. I really love that time in a kid's life from, grade 4, 5, 6,
Mm.
before they get to high school. It's quite emotionally charged, that age group of middle grade. They
Mm.
certainly like a lot of action, but there's also some self-doubt and
Yeah.
emotional baggage, trying to fit in, their home life, their school life, their friends. So I'm really up for middle grade.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Unfiltered Voices, the podcast that is all about busting the myth that self-published is second-rate. I'm Kellie Nissen. I'm an author coach and a self-published author, and I'll be talking to authors, illustrators, and other self-published industry professionals about their choices, their journeys, and everything in between. So stick around. Marg Gibbs, welcome back to Unfiltered Voices.
Hi, Kelly. Thanks for talking today.
Oh no, I'm so pleased to have you back. You're my first return guest, so that's exciting. So for people who aren't aware, we had Marg on the show in July last year. I had to look that up, and we talked a lot then about Marg's picture books and junior fiction. But the reason she's back today is A, because she's a wonderful person to interview, but also because Marg has recently published The Glow in Her Hands, which is a middle grade story for readers aged 8 to 13. And there it is. She's showing it there. I'm going to ask you about that cover later because that is just a stunning cover. Um, so, yeah, readers aged 8 to 13. And the story involves a museum mystery, a mystical stone, and an abiding friendship between Artie, Jessica, and Ellen. Is it Ellen or Elin?
Mhm.
Ellen? Okay.
Ellen?
So, Marg, you're really experienced when it comes to publishing and independent publishing. You've got a lot of books under your belt, but The Glow in Her Hands is your first middle grade. So, what prompted you to venture into that much longer form genre?
So I wanted to expand on characters and flesh out a few more characters. Even though I was a high school teacher, I have some experience now with my grandchildren being that age. So it's about friendships, it's about adventure and magic. It's quite emotionally charged, that age group of middle grade.
Picture books, certainly 500-ish words. Junior fiction has a great range, but middle grade, as you said, you've got more opportunity to flesh out the characters. You also have that opportunity to sort of delve into multiple themes and have your B story happening. So you obviously loved it. Um,
It's very positive. I'm
yeah,
itching. I've got a sequel on the go, and I've
excellent.
got a couple of others.
Brilliant. Yeah. Isn't it nice? You sort of I talk to a lot of people who start with picture books and they think, oh, I don't have any more than 500 words in me, and they get
Mm.
onto junior fiction and mid grade, and I find it really freeing,
Mm.
actually, to be able to go that far. So, what advice would you have then for other authors who maybe started with picture books or junior fiction, but are thinking of switching genres and trying their hand at something
Mm.
new?
Well, to those writers and anyone who would give it a go, definitely
Mm,
give it a go. Stretch those writing muscles. I mean, I think that they would have to read some middle grade books,
mm,
and if they enjoy them and a variety of them, then why not divide it up into chapters, have a
yeah.
beginning, middle, and ending, throw in a few interesting characters, come up with some new ideas, and you'll definitely need more than 500 words.
Oh, yes. Yeah. And I think give it a go is the important thing because a lot of people think, oh, I couldn't possibly write 40,000, 50,000
Mm.
words. I think, were you surprised that you,
No, I think I was never aiming for 70 or 80,000. And I know
Mm.
what that book size looks like, Kelly.
Yes.
I know when I go onto the shelves in the bookshops and the libraries, I know a lot of them are fantasy writers, but there's still a lot of
Mm.
YA and middle grade that might be 60 plus.
Yes.
And my target was always going to be around between 30 and 45.
Perfect. Which is, I
I-
think, a really good length for that age group too.
I'm comfortable with writing that. And
Yes.
by the time I get to chapter 29, 30, I know that my story ending is approaching.
Mm.
Still have to flesh out those last chapters, but it's not like I'm only halfway.
Yeah. So you're really also to sort of trusting your instinct rather
Mm.
than, knowing your story and knowing when your story is wrapping up rather than trying to push for that magical, word count. I've heard myself say this to myself and to other people as well. You'll know when it's time to end a chapter. You'll know when your story is
It's a bit like going on an overseas holiday for 3 weeks or 4 weeks, and
yeah.
people just know when it's time to come home.
That's a really good comparison, actually.
And some
Um,
people, some people last a week and they're
mm,
homesick, really.
yes,
They don't like
yeah.
the bed or they don't like the food. Other
Mm.
people want to go away for 3 or 4 months and not come home.
Yes, yeah, I know. I've certainly got like I reached this point where it's like, yeah, it's time to come home. Now I'm just,
Mm.
eking out the days until I get to come home. So can you tell us a little bit more about the story?
Well, Ellen, Elin, Becken, that's a Norwegian name, she
Mm,
leaves Norway after the drowning accident of her mother.
mhm,
Now, she's actually about 9 when that happens. So eventually, her and her dad, Lars, they move over to Australia. They move away from the cold, bleak winters and they
mhm,
settle in near Wallace Lake in Foster. And she's 12 and a half, almost turning 13. So she's had some time to adjust to her grief. She's trying to get
mhm,
used to her stepmother, Prudence, but conflicts arise and there's a lot of tension. She loves the warmth, she loves the beaches, she loves the pelicans, and she loves her new friend, Jessica Callendon.
mhm,
And Jessica and her cycle, they go to the beach, and they love to go to the local museum.
mhm,
But Jessica has a brother. I have to put in a little brother somewhere, and he plays a part in the museum, seeing a theft in the museum. But
mm,
eventually, she's been promised on her 13th birthday. Her father said, you can go back to Norway, maybe connect with your mother's memories, but I can't go with you. You'll have to go with Aunt Agatha.
mhm,
And Aunt Agatha was her mother's sister. So they head off, they go. She's 13, she's up for adventure. She's not sure what she's going to find over there, but they have the most wonderful husky ride. They see the northern lights, the aurora borealis. Other things happen while she's in Norway. And when she traces back to her mother's university days, she meets up with Katrine, who gives her a letter. And in this letter are her mother's words and a stone that her mother had been researching. Anyway, this is sort of a mystical stone. This is where it comes in. And this has the power to bring Ellen uh, a knowledge for the future, healing, when she holds it up to the northern lights. So there's
mm,
certain conditions. Anyway, she returns home to Australia, back to her lovely Wallace Lake. There's some dramas going on. Reggie runs away from home. The stone goes missing.
mhm.
And there's a few problems with her stepmother, with trust. But that's all I'm going to say at the moment. That's probably a lot.
Yes, yeah. I mean, you've certainly made me intrigued. I'm like, tell me more. But obviously now it's like, well, we want to know more. We buy the book. Um, so set in Norway and Australia.
Mhm.
Um, I know I've never been to Norway, but now you've made me want to go. So I believe you've spent time in Norway. Is that right? Yeah.
It was exactly 3 years ago, last
Right.
month,
Oh, okay.
that I
So
flew over with a girlfriend, a teaching colleague, and we went on a bus trip. So I wanted
okay.
to stomp in the snow. I wanted to see the winter. I wanted to maybe catch the lights, but that wasn't my main reason for going. So
Hmm.
Lyndall and I went on an excursion and we met other travellers and we had a lovely time. And I'd written about 10,000 words of a sort of a story. But
Hmm.
when I got to Tromsø, which is a city in the northern part of Norway, we stayed there for 3 nights. that's when I was able to just sort of write more notes,
Yeah,
feel the character here, just be present in that time. And I wrote a
yeah,
lot more. And so Norway was a magical place to go, especially if you wanted to experience winter. It
yes,
would be
yeah,
lovely in spring too, or summer, but I
yeah,
wanted to see snow.
yeah. So
Yeah.
your story, you had the bones of the story
I
before you
actually had the
went.
bones of a museum. I'd started off at the
Okay.
museum and I started researching about museums around in Australia and overseas. And it could have been a heist, it could have been this, it could have been that. I
Yeah.
knew that somewhere I wanted a museum to feature, but it
Okay.
changed a little. Yeah,
Yeah. So what was it your trip that prompted that change?
it did, I think.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And
It
just being
enlivened the story.
yeah, just being there and I suppose being immersed in the place that you're then writing about makes all the difference. So, um, did you see the aurora borealis?
We did. We had a long, long wait. We were up a couple of nights standing, frozen, with all our coats and beanies on and waiting for several hours.
Yeah,
But we did see them flickering and the glimmer and the colour
yeah.
change. And some of the passengers had really superb cameras, but
Mhm.
it worked with mine. And I
Yep,
knew that I saw it and I brought home a dozen photos. So it was
yeah.
really
Oh,
nice. It was
wow.
a real good connection.
Yeah. Do you think you'll go back?
I would love to maybe go back to Finland and maybe
Right.
do Sweden, but look, not in the near future.
Yeah, yeah, but still, I mean, you've had that experience, and now
Mm,
you've got the book,
mm,
and I think it lends credibility to the book that
mm.
that you spent time over there. Like, Google's a great thing, but nothing beats in-house
No,
experience,
no.
does it, to get that real feel. And I think we want that in mid-grade in particular. We want the reader to feel like they're there with the characters, and to do that, the author needs to do that as well, right? So,
Well, it certainly helped me. It
yes,
inspired me
yeah.
and motivated me. And when I got home, then I realised too that I wanted part of the story to be near a lake. And I looked
Okay.
at a few lakes in Queensland, but then I went to my atlas and had a little look around and said to my husband, maybe we could go on a little road trip holiday down to the coast of New South Wales. So
Okay.
I planned that. So I'd never been to Tuncurry and Foster. They're twin towns.
Oh, okay.
And
No,
I
I
had a
haven't been
friend
either.
who lives in Sydney who goes there quite regularly to visit her grandchildren. But it's
Mm,
a beaut spot, really lovely
yeah,
spot.
yeah,
And it was almost like I was taking Elin there. So I made up things, but I certainly took my notebook and wrote down some shop names and street
yeah,
names and yeah.
yeah. So enough to be, recognizable for people who know the area, but still
Mm.
fictional. And
Mm.
yeah, brilliant. So apart from that, the international connection, obviously, and then the local connection as well. In the story, you also deal a lot, as we've just heard, with themes of love and grief, in
Mm.
particular, with Ellen having to come to terms with the loss of her mother. Um, and there are other struggles in the book as well, family tensions you mentioned with the stepmother, and just accepting her new reality, like being pulled
Mhm.
out of the place she was born and put into a different culture and that sort of thing. So how and that's a lot, that's a really
Mm.
loaded question now, I'm so sorry. How does the glow in her hands deal with all of that, and particularly with grief,
Mm.
and the coming of age, because I think you put those two things separately are hard enough,
Mm.
but when you put them together, that's even
Well, with the grief, I can honestly say that her father and her are close. So her father is a good listening ear and he
mm,
talks to his daughter.
yeah,
I've written many, many chapters that I never had published. I wrote about the father's depression and how he
mm,
slumped after his Anne Louise died. And I wrote all these scenes and I didn't put any of them in.
yeah,
But the grief is she's got a supportive network. She's
mm,
got an auntie who loves and adores her and spoils her. She's got her father. She's got this new friend that she comes to become loyal to. She
mm,
also cycles. So she actually does some exercise and she just doesn't lie around all day.
mm.
And the bonus thing is, because I love to write, she has a journal. So she
Ah,
writes in her journal. She took
Yes.
it to Norway with her, but it also helps her um, express her emotions. And in my
Mm.
sequel, she uses it for another project. So the coming of the age, I guess it's that transition between the shock of her just being a fun, camping, outdoor girl to suddenly
Mm.
losing an important part of her whole life. And she's got to try to fit in.
Yes.
And, you know, really, to be honest, that could take a kid a lifetime.
Oh,
And you know,
absolutely. Yeah.
I'm not unrealistic enough to know that death can colour your whole life into the next
Mm.
generation.
Yeah.
But she's got the support she needs and she's got an understanding community. And I think that the shift for her helped her.
Mm. Yes. Yeah. I think too, like writing about these themes is is difficult and you need to treat it in a sensitive way, but it's also important, I think, to acknowledge that there are kids out there who are dealing with this
Mm,
at the moment. And, we talk a lot about the importance of children or people in general just being able to see themselves
mm.
in story and to maybe you don't know. You might have a child read that who feels like they're really alone and suddenly goes, you know what, somebody else gets me. Somebody,
Yeah.
and it'll be okay and that sort of thing. So I think what you've done is really important because, we've got a lot of mid-grade at the moment that's all whiz bang adventure, fantasy, escapism, and that sort of thing, which is all well and good and has its place. But I think
Mm.
something like your story, you've got that mystical element, but it's also really grounded as
And
well.
yeah, and Ellen has to end up learning responsibility and
Mm,
trust. She's been given this beautiful silver heart locket from her mother. She got it when she was
mm.
probably 7 or 8. So that's on the cover. Um,
Oh, okay. Oh,
that's
it is too.
her little
Yes.
locket there. And at my book launch, I gave away little lockets, and a couple of
Oh,
girls came
lovely.
up to me and they were so excited to be able to draw or put their parents or their friends inside the locket. So that
Yes.
was a symbol that I felt
Mm,
was right for her. She needed to have something of a mother. She had a hairbrush and her
yeah.
silver locket. And I think there was one other thing. Um, but yes, grief, look, it's in every classroom, at every school, it's in every
Mm,
family.
yeah.
And, you know, I could tell you a million stories that people have told me, you know, such and such was killed overseas, or such and such person died and lived to this age, or such and
Yeah.
such, you know. And while I wouldn't use that as the whole story, it is definitely part of Ellen's journey.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. And there's so much happening in this story as well. That I'm always in awe actually of people who write in the longer form, and I do myself, but you don't realize until you look at somebody else's that you've got all these intertwined things, happening, and somehow you've got to make them merge at the end and
Yeah,
and
yeah.
come out the other end. And there's a lot in there. There's a lot of planning, like you talked about having written some chapters that didn't go in because I think you need to go through that process, don't you, to
Mm.
to get to know your characters and
Mm.
get to understand them. And you know I think it's a sign of a really good writer if you can look at that and go, well, actually, yes, I wrote it and I bled into that, but I don't need it. So it's not
You
as
know,
so
that's true. I actually started with her and her mum doing some
oh, okay.
fantastic things in the snow, being positive
Yes.
and wonderful. And then a mother saying, "Look, I really can't go next weekend camping. You'll have to go with your dad because I'm doing a work conference. I'm going to catch a ferry across
Ah,
to."
okay.
And
Yeah.
I wiped all that out. I just thought, oh, look, maybe I should start when a mother's already gone,
Yes. Yeah.
you know,
But
and
you needed to do that, didn't you, to actually
mm,
understand
yes,
Ellen,
yes.
really.
And
So,
myself too, how
and
I was,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah, yes, yeah. So to sort of unpack that, and it's not. A lot of people might think, oh, that's you spend all this time and then
Waste
you
of
didn't
time.
use it. It's not a waste of time
No.
at all, and there'll be ideas there that you can repurpose for something else as well.
Sometimes I think if I go back and look at my earlier um, descriptions, I think, oh, that would have been good. Why didn't I put that in?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, it'll always be like that, won't it?
Yeah.
When you sort of look, but it's like, you know what? Be proud of the, the story
Mm.
that you've produced. Research.
Hmm.
How much research did you have to do? I mean, there's a lot in there. Obviously, you had the in-country experience and that sort of thing,
Mm.
but some of those other themes, like the grief and that sort of thing,
Yeah.
did
Well,
you?
with travel, I collected a few brochures and maps and,
Mm,
museum info. I looked at magazines. I brought back a few Norwegian newspapers and a couple of
okay.
local newspapers I bought in the Tuncurry newsagents, looking
Okay.
for, what's going on in the local region. I did a bit of research on Sami culture, and they're the
Mm,
indigenous cultures with the huskies and the
yeah.
reindeer. With grief, yeah, I looked at a couple of pages on counselling. What do counsellors offer
Mm,
to adolescents when they've lost something?
yeah.
And a few of them said, keep a diary or keep a journal.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, yeah, I did a bit of research on wildlife and flora and
Mm-hmm.
fauna
Mm,
and seasons, how cold it gets, little
yeah.
things like that.
Yeah. So you really do. I've heard other people say this. You become a bit of an expert in some of those things that you're writing about, because there's a lot of research that you have to do to write like a descriptive paragraph
Mm,
that seems real. And I think too, there are people out there who don't write, or that sort of thing, who maybe don't realize that it's not just a matter of sitting down and pumping out a story. There's a lot more, as we've just
mm,
seen, that goes on behind the backgrounds. So February 21st was launch day, um,
mm,
which was a while ago, away. So you launched the book at the Nambour Historical
mm.
and District Museum. You've got that museum connection as well. Was that the reason that you chose that
Well,
location?
firstly, I volunteer every Thursday
Oh,
there for
perfect.
2 or 3 hours.
Mm,
But I had to ask for approval. So I
hmm
had to talk to two people and explain what I was doing. And one of the ladies said to me, oh, is this a story about Nambour Museum? Like, is it a
mm,
story about? I said, no, it's not.
yeah,
And I explained what it was, and she waited. She got back to me 3 or 4 days later and said, "Look, we can have that on the deck."
mm,
It's a headmaster's residence full of rooms, full of memorabilia and displays.
okay,
We've got the trains, all the steam locomotives and the Ford cars, and inside the museum, there's lots of rooms. They all go to the museum. They
yeah,
spend a bit of time. So when she said yes, I thought, yay, I can have it
yay,
there. And then I
yeah,
started looking at the room thinking, oh, I wonder if it's big enough because it probably only comfortably at a squeeze fits 30.
right, yes.
And then you go through the doubts. Oh, will I get even 20? How many people will come? But
Maybe the room will be too big.
well, it worked out, and we had our volunteers working on the Saturday morning to usher them in. And if people wanted to go to visit the museum itself, it was $5 for a ticket and
Yeah,
$1 for a child. So
yeah.
they have that choice of coming to the launch and going, or just going home.
Okay. Yeah, I really like that they supported you, though,
Mm,
because a lot of places like there to be a connection.
they do.
So, and I
We
think,
get a lot of people coming in, a lot asking, can they take this item? Can they take that? We've got
right,
so much, and the rooms are crammed. And now the line is simply, is it connected with the
yes.
history of Nambour?
And so your launch went well, obviously.
Yes, it went well, and my husband helped me. Thank you, Bill. And I have some really good close friends, and a couple of random people that I just met, in the libraries, and I approached
Nice.
them and said, look,
Yeah,
next week I'm having a launch and you look like you might be the right age and would you be interested in coming? And they
yeah,
got back to me and then their grandmother came and so it was
yeah.
lovely.
It is nice. It's a lot of legwork though, isn't it, on your part to sort of,
Unfortunately, my
you know,
Brisbane families and all my lovely kids and grandkids, they have sport every
ah,
Saturday morning and
yes.
they are really committed. And so, I've got to think about,
Mm.
yeah, they couldn't
It
come.
is. It is a juggling act, isn't it? With launches, and I'm always saying to people, look, do the launch, have the celebration, but timing wise, sometimes there are other commitments,
Mm,
and it is what it is. But I think you celebrate and you enjoy
mm,
the birth of the book that you've spent years working on as well. So last time you were on in July last year, we like you have this vast wealth of knowledge and experience in many areas. Is there anything else that you'd like to talk about, your process with this book, or promoting the book, or just in general?
mm. Well, I want to have a big shout out to Romy Sharp
Mm,
because her group and her ideas to market and promote the book with reviews, she's been wonderful, and I'd go
mm.
to her every time. So thank you very much, Romy. I certainly find that with book launches, you have to prepare and organise early. So you
Yes.
don't leave it a month before.
Hmm.
I don't leave it a month before. Um, I think about the different types of people that can be involved in a book launch too. And this time I
Mm.
had a couple of young 12-year-olds reading and playing a game and doing things.
Ah, yes, yes.
That was nice. So I like to involve people.
Mm.
Uh, yeah, I guess that's probably like I did some mood boards and brainstorming to also
Mm.
with part of the research. Did like
Yeah,
a scrapbook and I took
yeah.
that along to my book launch, my mood board, a pinned board, but I didn't get time to talk about it. But
Oh no.
also Elisa Darlison was my MC and she was wonderful.
Oh, she's so
Yeah,
supportive, isn't
she
she?
was.
So,
And I
lovely
sent out
person.
an email to her months before, just
Mm.
inquiring, thinking
Yes.
really she's going to be
Yeah.
too busy. But she jumped
Yeah.
right on board straight away and said she'd be very honoured and would love to do it.
Yeah.
And like
That's
that
lovely.
is a huge relief.
Mm.
So then she had to launch her own book. She had a picture book coming out and she was doing lots of things all around the place as she does with schools.
Yes.
But that was really lovely. And she was a very humble and well-spoken lady.
I think, it boils down to just surrounding yourself with generous people. And as you said, planning well ahead. And I think Mary Anastasio commented on this a while ago. You're so busy getting the book written and edited and prepared and laid out and all that sort of thing. And then all of a sudden it's published and it's like, oh, I better start promoting. And planning the launch, you have to start doing that way back.
Well,
Mentioned.
when it came to finding the illustrators, because I wanted to mention both the ladies,
Mm,
the cover designer is Nithini or
hmm.
NIT Art Studio, Knit Art
Okay.
Studio. So she's
Ah.
quite a glamorous woman. She's Sri Lankan.
Hmm.
And she does a lot of travel and photography, and she does a lot of watercolor illustrations for children's books. But I saw her on Instagram, so I
Oh, wow.
contacted her just to
Hmm.
see. And we had many, many goes at the cover.
Yep.
We tried to change Ellen's looks a little, and at first she thought she'd give me a Norwegian looking girl.
Yep.
And I said, no, no, no. I'd really like sort of a teenage girl who's this age, has this, she's wearing this. So I gave her some feedback.
Mm,
It's hard to do teenagers, and I didn't quite want a cartoony look for this book. So
yes.
that's the cover lady. And then internals, I've been in contact with Novia Heroanto. She's born in Indonesia, but she lives in Sydney.
Oh,
And
okay.
she's amazing. And
Yeah.
her sketches and her process have been fantastic. So she sent me some chapter. You see that?
Oh, that is beautiful. So, just for people who are listening on the podcast, you've got these beautiful black and white sketches, and then like the layout at for the chapter headings.
Well, what I
basically.
what I thought to Kelly at the time, it's very simple. Just put chapter 3, chapter 4, chapter 5 right through.
Mm,
Or you could have a chapter title, which I have done. I love
yep.
thinking about little titles because they help me
Yes.
too. But then I thought, oh, why not have a little picture that represents the Norway scene,
Mm,
and then the
yeah.
one that
So,
represents the Australian one at the beach with the dolphins and this bicycle.
oh, beautiful. Yeah.
So
Oh,
she
I like
cottoned
that.
onto that idea very quickly, did a couple of roughs, then came
Mm,
back with the rendered look and the finished look, and I was
yeah.
just wrapped. And the
Yes.
only thing we changed was where the little dolphins are jumping out of the water,
Hmm.
Novia had a boat.
Right.
So I said, look, could we get rid of the boat? Could we put some dolphins? And they're the little tweaks. So she was
Yeah.
great. She was
Which
good.
is the lovely thing, I think, too, about independently publishing is that collaboration
Mm.
between you and the illustrator or you and the cover designer. Can I ask who does your graphic design, the layout?
The actual layout is a lady
Yes.
called Helen Christie
Hmm.
from Melbourne. She's the
Okay.
designer or
Yeah.
formatter. Because
Yes.
I don't have the skills and I haven't learned
Oh,
those skills.
and
But
sometimes you just need to go, no, I need to outsource this
well,
to
I did
somebody else.
outsource it
Yeah.
because I can trust her and she knows exactly where to put the fonts. And if there's a
Yes.
long word at the end of a page, she will know how to adapt it.
How
So
to
I trust
manage that.
Helen.
Yeah. I
Exactly.
know.
And see the little one at the bottom.
Oh, yes, the
So I've
little
got
dog.
two little girls because I really love children's art.
Mm,
And these two girls are part of a family of four that live in Foster.
right.
And I know the grandma.
Hmm.
So they were keen to draw pictures. They would have had a lot more drawn.
Yeah.
But I
Oh, so
said, look,
that's their illustration.
yes, I said, look,
Oh,
just
I love
two,
that.
please, Grace and
Yeah.
Elise, just one little puppy dog husky and one troll. And that's what happened with, here's the little troll.
Oh, that's so cute. Oh, I love that.
So she's only 10,
Yeah.
but
But
you
now
know,
you've made them published
yeah,
illustrators.
yeah. And their
That's
mum's
gorgeous.
proud, and she's, and they go to school there. So it's a
Yeah.
little journey. And their artwork now they're using a digital Procreate tablet, so they're
Oh,
really
okay.
improving all the time.
Yeah. Oh, well, there you go. We might have some up and coming illustrators. Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing those. Um, so Marg, where can we purchase your?
Well, on my website's the best way. It's just basically
Hmm.
www.mjgibbs.com.
Yes,
I'm having
excellent.
a big revamp in another month or two because I've had the website going for about 7 years and there's
Hmm.
huge amounts of photography for the blogs and teacher resources and all sorts of things.
Yes.
But I've had a professional say to me, I think you need to simplify it, make it
Hmm.
really simple. So I'm working on that, but that's my website.
Yeah.
You can always email me,
Hmm.
and my email, will you put that in the link or
Yes, I
yeah,
will.
it's
I'll
in
put
the
your
book.
email in the link, and you've probably got a contact page anyway on your website too. So
Yes, yes.
yeah.
There's a shop that you can purchase, and
Yes.
apart from
Excellent.
postage, I'll deliver it. I'll package it up for you and send it off.
Lovely.
Yeah, I'm just excited that I've been able to share all this with you, Kelly.
And
Mind it.
I'm so
Yeah.
pleased. It took us a little while to work out a time, but we got there,
Mm.
and that's the main thing. So good luck with the ongoing sales for your book and the sequel as well.
Yes,
Yes, yep,
yes,
and more mid grade after this.
yes. I've got a few on the go, and then I'm still entering a few. I'm submitting to competitions and a pitch it for a picture book.
Yeah,
CYA, I'm still submitting to things there.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Uh,
you've really you have to. I think you just sort of you know
mm,
keep going and because you never know. And I think the only definite way to fail is when you don't submit to anything. So thank you so much, Marg, for coming on again.
thank you for having
Um,
me. And